Hi, and welcome to the New Property Show. I'm Steve McMenamin. A few months ago, we're at the House and Land Expo, and we gave a presentation on the advantages of investing in the Queensland property market. In this show, we're going to revisit that and finish off with a few comments from the panel.
All right, guys, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for coming to the Open Lot Expo. So put your hands together for yourselves, for your commitment to be in the right room with the right people. What we're going to share today, and I know we're sitting in Melbourne, but why Queensland is the #1 place at the moment to invest, and it's on our checklist. And what I'd like you to do is just look at this with an open mind. So just a little bit about what I do and how we help people. So I run a company called Houseland Co. Over the last 20 years, I've been in property, been buying property myself since I was 18. I started as the client and then worked with the builders and the land developers. In that time, we've done over $1 billion in transactions. We've helped 1,100 families create wealth through property. And our biggest focus really is creating cash flow positive properties rather than negatively geared. The reason for that is that's the cash is king. That's where you're going to create the income. So with that said, what we've done is we've partnered up today with Home Corp, which is Australia's and Queensland's #2 builder in Queensland. We focus on cash flow positive properties for one reason, and that is the bank likes it. They like it when you've got more money coming in. If you have issues with serviceability or your finance, what they're liking is seeing an extra $200 or $300 per week coming in. Rather than having to work for your money, you're getting your money to work for you. Now, we're going to cover off the property investment checklist. These are the things, the top 10 things you should know, whether you're purchasing from us or you're purchasing as an investor before you actually do your due diligence and purchase a brand new property. Now, the big question is why in Queensland? So just by a show of hands, who likes Queensland? Is it a lot hotter? It's why 75,000 people have just moved there in the last 12 months. Apart from a few little lockdowns that we had here, there's been a huge shift up there, and one of the main reasons is affordability. In Melbourne, for around about $500,000 or $600,000, you're typically buying around about a 300 square metre block, maybe a 3 or 4 bedroom home in a turnkey if you're working with new. In Queensland, for the same amount of money, you're getting around about a 5 to 6% yield versus a 3.2%. You're getting land over 400 square metres, maybe 400 to 500 square metres. And of course, the affordability is there, which means you can multiply your wealth a lot quicker. So just passing over to Dan here, who's come down to support us at C23. He's going to talk to you a little bit about Home Corp and what they're doing as a builder in Queensland and South Australia.
Fantastic. Thanks, Steve. Dan Hillier is my name. I am the National Sales Marketing Manager for Home Corp Property Group. Founded in 2004 by Ron Bakir. We are a land developer and a construction company. We work on townhouses, house and land packages, and apartments in the mid-rise and high-rise spacing, mostly focused on the Gold Coast and that sector. Recently, we voted, after our numbers come through HIA, the second largest home builder in Queensland, just behind Metricon, who's Australia's largest home builder. We are the 15th largest builder of homes in the country. So I think those numbers are important when selecting a builder, working someone who is known, proven, trusted, and also has that strong financial backing, which I think is more important than ever, where if you read the newspapers around construction companies. We are 51% owned by Masaha Homes in Japan. They are one of the most innovative house builders in Japan. 50 years old, developed over 1.3 million homes. So fantastic to have that support behind us and credibility in delivering houses.
Who would like to have more money come in their bank than go out? By a show of hands. Me too. So that's why we focus on positive geared properties. So basically all that means is that you work out, for example, let's say your rent was $40,000 per year. You divide that by your purchase price, might be $500,000. And you times it by 100, but effectively what we try and focus on with the strategies is finding properties that offer over 5% rental yield and you're still maximising your capital growth. So what the bank may want to look at, and with your strategies, you may want to have 2 positive geared properties and then you need to manufacture some equity. So then we go and find an area that's closer to the CBD and you get the capital growth and you go again. I myself found an issue around about 10 years ago where I was holding a significant amount of negatively geared properties and relocated to Melbourne, and for a short time had to replace my income. I can tell you can't write off zero. When you've got positive geared properties, the advantage that we had during COVID was I had no clients ring me and say I have any issues. They're still able to service the properties. You don't have to go to work. And the ultimate goal should be to set yourself up so that you can actually have your properties doing the work for you. So with that said, we're going to go over to the property investment checklist. I'll get Dan to cover off some of these things here.
Yeah, thanks. Similar to an investor as a land developer, we have our due diligence and checklist like you should as well. The fundamentals, I guess, if you had the crystal ball for capital growth, are quite easy. It's remembering the old pie, the population, infrastructure and investment spending, and employment nodes. Second tier to that, you'd be running in transport and education. They're the things that we look for. We're invested in, I guess, sectors within Queensland. We like to get in nice bit early, create value within the land by the time that the house is built, and by that time selecting, we've seen growth over the last 4 years in every single project we have now delivered. You're going to talk a little bit more about our hotspot as you've been selecting for your clients.
So guys, feel free to take some photos if you need to, but if this is the area in Queensland that we've identified to be the strongest in growth, so really what we're seeing here is it's located really between Brisbane and Gold Coast. The reason for that is if you were, imagine yourself relocating to from Melbourne and you live somewhere in maybe Logan, for example, and your partner worked up in Brisbane, your other partner, hopefully you don't have two partners, they worked down in Gold Coast. So with that said though, what will happen is you're around about 30 minutes drive between the two. You're actually still close to, I guess, the beach, and you've got the proximities and you have the school zoning. But one of the most popular things about the Logan area is there's over 200,000 population. Then we go inland a little bit, which about 30 minutes sort of inland is Ipswich. So Ipswich has been identified as one of Australia's leading suburbs. And the reason I know that's successful is I had a fly-in, fly-out worker about 18 months ago purchase off me. He started initially with a $70,000 deposit, and within 18 months he's onto his fourth property now, and we've created over $800,000 worth of equity. So what that means is he's able to keep going and going and going again, and now we're identifying super funds as well. Another area that we'll touch on is Toowoomba, just to keep an eye on that, and of course up to Moreton Bay, but I might just get Dan to just talk a little bit about Ipswich and I guess what's going on there, Dan?
Yeah, I'll run into the locations that we're heavily invested in at the moment, and we do work on metro and working in regional, and they both offer different opportunities from a price point, yield, long-term versus short-term gains as well. Yeppoon, we've been invested up there in Rockhampton for the last 6-7 years now. The Sunshine Coast for the last 4 years. In Gympie, we have our own land development project, building out there a couple hundred houses. Toowoomba, we just bought a recent 300 lot subdivision, which we're going to launch next Thursday. There are some packages we're sending your way before they hit the market. Brisbane, as most builders should be on their radar as well, heavily invested up there. The Gold Coast and house and land, townhouse, we do mid-rise and high-rise developments down there as well. And the Ipswich, and Logan corridor has been somewhere for the last 10 years we've been invested in, and certainly over the last 2 years we've seen our greatest growth corridor.
I'll get Dan to touch on why, as I said, Queensland is being so popular at the moment.
Look, going through the population, it's quite easy to see here. Double the amount of change, the improvement compared to New South Wales and Victoria. And then that, goes through to, which is the most exciting one, is where they're going, where they're leaving, where they're coming. We haven't had a whole lot of international migration in recent times. So I think COVID certainly helped us. I know I've got a lot of friends down here who came up and, they were surprised that we had a flood, but unfortunately you're having one at the moment as well. So, but looking at the numbers, over double the amount of net interstate migration. Clearly moving from affordability and lifestyle, much like investors and owner-occupiers, moving up to Queensland, which has been a really positive story for us. The next one I'm going to talk about is the rental and the shortage and the yield. I think, looking at southeast Queensland, certainly Brisbane, it's always been a yield story. Our capital growth has always been traditionally underneath Sydney and Victoria, but we've been a strong holding property. So your yield is usually around that 5%. Typically in Melbourne you see around that 4%, and Sydney's usually around that 3.2 to 3.5. And that becomes because of affordability and price point that you're buying it in. And what we've seen, during COVID is as soon as COVID happened, the investors, probably the interstate investors, first thing they did is they, relinquished and sold a couple of investments to make sure they were, safeguarded financially during what they, were unbeknown what COVID would bring us. What that did is obviously took a lot of supply of the rental market out. Owner-occupiers came in through different grants that the government was doing. The first-home buyers really came in, and really developers actually stopped selling their properties to investors because of the cost of sale and started working with the owner-occupiers. What that's done is gave us a really shortage in the supply of investment properties to tenancies, and now we're seeing the Gold Coast, which is locked down, all below 1% in vacancy rates. So the way that vacancy rates work is that at 3.3%, that's an equilibrium market. So that's where supply and demand meet each other. So certainly as we push down below 1%, that's when you're seeing those rising prices.
So I guess in easy terms, really, we're having, with our Queensland market, we're having about 15 to 20 applications per property. So there really is a shortage up there. As I said, I know we're up here, we're spruiking Queensland at the moment, but at the end of the day, we identify these areas to create the income. So the advantage with having 15 to 20, applications is, one, you can put the price up if need be, but two, you get the ability to actually hand select your tenant, which gives you, growth long term. I think the biggest thing there to really share is the money's not made with the property. The money's made in the land. So the bigger the lot size, that's where you're going to get your growth long term. So we're just touching on Logan because at the moment we have a couple of projects which are titled and ready to go. And if you haven't or haven't built before, but what we need to know, in the building side is the confidence in the build to actually complete. There's a little bit, so the elephant in the room is at the end of the day, a lot of clients has been seeing us at our stalls have said to us, look, can your builder complete? Now the fact that we're 51% owned and backed by Toyota, the advantage that we have with that is that this is just one, drop in the ocean for this company here. The other thing too, when you're looking at building, is you're looking at the inclusions that are there. So we want to have things like 900 appliances, Caesar stone throughout. They need to. The other thing that HomeCourt provides is 600 by 600 porcelain tiles. So it's almost like a display home village, but you're still getting the investor product. The advantage with that is if you do come to resell it, or you need to get the property genuinely revalued to pull out equity, that's great. The other thing too, with the Melbourne market, if you guys in the last 2 years have seen a substantial increase in your property prices. So all you really need to do is unlock around about $100,000 to $120,000 of equity, which is already sitting there, and just shift that to another property. The advantage with that is you're getting tax depreciations, equity, and you actually build your portfolio a lot quicker.
Fantastic. Look, just touching on Logan, what we went through before, looking at just under $9 billion of infrastructure projects. I've been to a number of these seminars before and expos, and developers come up and talk about proposed all the time. I think it's really important to have a look at the projects that are already underway. It's not about waiting for the next 10 years of growth. It's about what growth can I get in the short term to allow me to start building that property portfolio as well. So with price points, as you touched on before, we're sitting, packages starting at $500,000 all the way past $1 million. And we also invested in South Australia. We've got an office down there, which is a bit of a price point driven market as that affordability is going down as well. But our major focus will remain in Queensland, southeast Queensland, in known, proven, trusted corridors.
What we might touch on now is what's actually happening with builders around the market. There's some of the issues that we're coming up against in the last 12 months was shortage of supplies, labour price increases. Do people hold contracts? Do they rip them up? Fixed price contracts? I think the most important thing that you need to be looking at, whatever builder you're dealing with, is trying to get away from provisional sums and working with, no tenders, but fixed price contracts that hold for 12 months, not 3 months and we'll review. We're about holding the price. If the project goes over with the land, we'll still fix the price. And most importantly, what we need to look at is looking into 2030. Is the builder still going to be around in 8 to 9 years? is they going to be sustainable? Because that's important when you've got builder's warranty, insurance, and of course confidence in who you're dealing with. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is build a long-term relationship with our clients. What we might just touch on is what's actually happening in the industry at the moment that's causing, I guess, some concern. So let's not just focus on the pros, but let's look at some of the things that are actually going on in the market if we can, Dan.
Yes, certainly. Look, it's been a tough year for a lot of builders in construction in the last 12 months. Who would have thought that, what we've been through? And if we look at materials, it's widespread that there's been shortages. We do have wait times, and it's really important to have that procurement measures correct and have your ordering facilities in place. We are seeing, a little bit more of a relaxation over the last sort of 3-4 months in, skilled labour, which is quite good. We've been fortunate enough to pick up a number of other contractors and builders to come under our banner as well. We've also, acquired some other companies as well, which has come in and helped boost our supply level. But if you look at fixed pricing, I think that's a really, really important one, having that security and understanding that when you sign a contract, that contract's going to be seen through. And that's certainly what we offer at HomeCourt. We haven't torn up, we've worked with our clients. We like to think of ourselves as the partner. We are the land developer in most cases and the builder, and I think that's important because we can work together, have transparency, and are there from, that cradle to grave. It's not just the land gets settled and we're out, or we're not, not involved in the land development at the front end. So that's a really good piece, an important one when selecting a builder, to have that visibility as well.
Today's topic is going to be investment properties in this climate, skyrocketing rents, and really how to maximise opportunity out of that. So, investing client, what's happening in the market?
I think every suburb in every area is different. So what I like to do is I like to look at a suburb report, which you can go on the Google and you can Google suburb report, and you can actually see how many people are looking at renting in a suburb, how many houses or apartments are available in the suburb, and the prices of those for rent, and also for sale too. So you can really see that there is sometimes 20 to 30 people applying for one place to rent. So you can see that there's a massive amount of demand for rental properties right now in Australia. It's crazy. Each suburb's different. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think in terms of investing in this current environment, which is clearly very uncertain, and especially for investors who wants to start off investing in property, what they have to see and look is see what they can really hold on to, because it's all about holding. If they can hold on to it, they're going to make profit. The only way you lose some money is if you can't hold it, and obviously it's good, rent is good. I mean, for investors it's good, rent is going up, but for obviously renters is not. It's a very sad news. Rent is going up. It's a part of inflation. But I think they have to check how much they can afford, how much they can invest, and these sort of things, and certainly buy something which you can definitely hold on to. You have a capacity to hold. That's important.
And I want to actually start with some figures, right? So this year we want 200,000 immigrants in the country. We're expecting at minimum 300,000 plus students. That's 500,000 people that need a home to live in, right? So my prediction is over the next 5 years, we're not going to see the rental crisis ease up, because don't forget, we're going to add immigrants every year. We live in the lucky country. We live in Australia, right? And most of us on this panel are immigrants, right? So I believe personally that at least 5 years more of high rental returns will exist, but also I conversely believe that the way we've chosen to invest in property in the past is fundamentally broken, right? Yeah. And I alluded to this before. A 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom property isn't necessarily going to be the one that gets you the best quality rent. You need to look at exploring the outer circles of that, because that is becoming more and more mainstream. Something with more than just one tenant in the house, because honestly, a 4-bedroom house amongst a couple is a waste of space, right? And we need these rooms desperately. Families are living in cars right now. We owe it to them as investors to help ease that rental crisis, and we can earn significantly by doing the right thing.
I would say what you just said, Gaurav, now to add to this one, I think in a way it's also an opportunity now that a lot of people have booked many lots under the one name.
Yeah.
I'll give you a classic example of a western suburbs now. A lot of people, because it's such a growing area, and it is, I would always say that the west is the best for the investment because it's such a growing and close to CBD and offer a lot of things. So if you look at now on vacancies on Google or online now, there are vacancies anyway, even to invest. So if there's anybody who's watching that investor, I would say if you have a spare cash, it's a good time to buy.
That's it.
Because now it's on your term. Now it's your term now. And some of the nominations going through in the industry now that people have bought 4 or 5 lots now. They're just like trading the house, buying. It's like it's not enough necessity, it's become a commodity now. I want to afford 5 and they can't afford it the new in a day one. So now they're back in the market. So it's a good time for investment. I do agree with you now. There are well, in western suburbs we haven't seen much housing crisis, but there may be in other areas anyway. So there will be more to come. You watch it, there'll be more mortgage sales going to come. There'll be more people will be selling houses. But as I said before, interest rates has gone up. And now those people have bought properties in thought that they would never be able to pay 5-6% interest. They'll be happy days, so they're paying 2% now, so then it's going to drop to 6%.
Yeah.
Now they will be selling because they just bought no one. I know a couple of people already bought 2, 3s. They can't hold it on one.
Yeah.
So now they're gonna sell it. So there'll be more properties coming market. So it's a good market for the investors, those who have a cash.
Yeah.
I would say that there definitely will be an opportunity for people to buy.
And just to add on that one, I think that right now is an amazing opportunity to buy into the investment property, or buy into the market. But we also, I also see people that sit on the edge and they're always thinking like the doomsday side of things. But if you're buying an investment property for 10 years and it's cash flow positive, it's the right type of property, if you buy it today or you buy it in 6 months' time for 2% less, it doesn't really matter. And I think that's one of the key points when we're talking to different people about investment properties, is that being in the market is better than sitting on the fence.
I think you're right. I want to add one more thing to this about rent increase. I mean, too much increased rent is not good as well. It's an imbalance to the investment strategy as well. You have to have some sort of, like same as interest rate, it has to have some stability in rent increase as well. Because if it's imbalance, too much rent, property value is not that much, it's not going to work long term. So we have to look long term and look. It's all about the information for renters, information for investors. It's all the right information they need.
The last thing I guess we should really touch on is that I know we work in the new home space and predominantly new home space, but I was doing some research the other day and I actually found some bargains. So I thought, okay, if I was 18 or 20, what would I do different? You could go up to northern Queensland, you could go to Darwin, you can go to Perth. There's properties out there at the moment that are less than 7 years old, so they've still got builder's warranty, under $300,000. That are returning 7, 8, 9%. That's the kind of yields that we provide at 6, 7%.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about holding on properties, buy something under 300 grand, put a 10% or 20% deposit down, so 30,000 or 60,000, which you could pull out of equity, immediately get a tax offset because you're paying 45 cents in the dollar, or you'd know this, Gary, 37 cents. So less focus on the interest rate and more focus on the tax advantage and spin it around.
Look, what it does is interest rate rise, the first thing it happens is your borrowing capacity. So I said to people, come to me and see where we can buy. I said, look, you have to see how much you can afford, what deposit you have, and try to pay as much as deposit as you can, and so that you have more borrowing capacity. And buy wherever you can buy. It's not that I'm going to buy here, I like this area. Investment property is not about liking or disliking. Investment property is about how much best rent you're getting, what returns of capital growth you're getting in that area, what sort of tax benefits you're getting, and how is capital growth happening. So it's like a business. You don't want, if you're living in a house, then you want, I like this color, I like this facade, I like this area, I like that street. But when you're buying investment property, it's purely numbers. You have to see the numbers, you have to see how it's going to work for you and how it's going to work for your individual situation at the moment. That's very important.
Thanks again, guys, for joining us on New Property Show, and we'll see you again. That's all for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next week.